and stuff. We got Anna, we got Bas. I hope that more people join. They don't join, well then we'll discover the recording appropriately to ensure that we have a nice session going in. This is the first chapter. The chapter probably the most important. Probably the most important chapter in the book, because that's where we learn how to execute and put it in working. That will later on scale to allow to have different teams working in different areas of the company, all with the same purpose and delivering very, very fast. So that's an important, very important thing that I took from the author. And so essentially we have the screen that is being shared, screen 2, where you've got, yeah, pretty cool. That where you've got, and also is in here, the Figma board, but it's more small, where we can have any kind of opinions or questions that we have to do on how are we going to implement this. Okay, so two things side by side. We can see live, for example, I have some questions around how to do some of the methodologies in there. So that is a way to move this forward. Here we go.
Many of their own academic and personal goals.
So I'll start from the beginning, okay?
We will present the Scrum Master program fully and completely, sharing how to achieve the business values included in Scrum. The intention is to give you the principles that make it work broadly and to offer specific applications that solve recurring problems in specific domains. Principles work everywhere. Applications are context specific. So this book has principles that if you get those, you can apply this stuff anywhere, any context. Principles apply broadly, even universally, potentially. Application are still super useful, because if you have the context where that application fits, you can apply this pattern immediately as a practiced reflex. So there's value there too. So this book presents both application and principle. People that only know application can never work cross-domain or in a new domain. People who only know principle can create any application they need, but it may take time. So having a recipe book of application even helps people who are skillful or even masterful at principle.
I want to pause in here because this for me was really an important thing. That is, who learns this thing, who learns this methodology, can starting from the principles and moving them to the practices. And you'll see in here this 3-5-3 as it's an agile thing. I find it not only the principle but the execution being able to transfer to across a ton of places. So let's continue with the book, because in fact I'll put some note over there so that I recall or I ensure that it should work. What are the common tools? And I encourage you to do the same. If there is something that you see needs to be done, or couldn't waste time in here because I'm not also joining us. And I would ask you to Bas, I would ask you also to log in, okay, and place your comments over there. The Figma board is this one. Once more, so that you are able to check it out. Okay, and the link to Joe's book reading is this one. Okay. So it should function on your side as I.
On completion of this book, you, as a dedicated reader, will be able to obtain the business values of Scrum in your studies, your personal goals, your personal work, and your business. I think this is important, and I learned this working with Ricardo Meriti. He would always stress Scrum is successful in business. In fact, it's the only thing that works in business. the principles of it, whatever you call it. But you can and should use it for your studies, your personal life, your relations. And Maria Mattarelli and Peter Stevens wrote a book about that called Personal Agility, and that book is awesome. I use it myself. I highly recommend it.
So I'm going to pause Joe in here because I do have these books, and I would say that there is a book called Personal Kanban that is really fantastic. And I would say that I try to find the personal agility, and it's very, very hard. So that's something that we need to ensure that is available for everyone. And I will reach out Joe on that. Okay, I'll put a note in here on the personal agility book, so that anyone can either find the book or in this case use it. But the Kanban one is really, really good. Okay, so what are the tools? And what are the tools? And what would that how to use oops, how to use Kanban. That for me has been like a good and interesting thing.
In addition, a dedicated reader should be able to teach a top-tier Scrum Master seminar, provided they earn and maintain the appropriate credential, whichever credentialing body you want to use, anywhere they choose in the world. Combined, the authors of this book have trained more than 10,000 Scrum Masters in Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and North and South America. Now, those are mostly my students, but Ricardo Meriti has also contributed to this book, and he's also trained some students. In language-specific adaptations of this book, like the Spanish version of the book, the French version, the Mandarin, the Japanese version, other trainers have contributed, and they've also trained even more people. The authors of this book have achieved many of their own academic and personal goals, working goals, financial goals, and more broadly, business goals. Why should you consider trusting this book and its authors? Fair question.
So here is one of the key things from Joe. These guys have been working with a lot of folks, really, really a lot of folks. And now that they come up with that, both him comes up saying Tesla and SpaceX, business agility. I think we should give it a try. I've seen the direct application of these in my personal goals with my son, and with the new projects in other areas, and this stuff is really powerful. So definitely encouraged to move that on.
Give you my best answer. This book is created by the Agile Business Institute, with the primary contributor being Joe Justice, chair of the board of the Agile Business Institute. The Agile Business Institute has amassed more than 100 years combined experience in executive-led Agile transformations of global Fortune 50 companies. So we've got that going for us. Joe Justice has been featured in CNN Money, Forbes, the Harvard Business Review, TED.com, the Discovery Channel, ABC's Good Morning America, NBC's Today Show, Fox News. In Asia, the Asahi Shimbun and the Nikkei, which are the two top publications in Asia for business, among other global publications. Joe Justice's experience includes Agile transformation work, training, consulting, and presenting in Lockheed Martin, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, where I was Scrum Master for Bill Gates, Boeing, the US Air Force, Hewlett Packard, including Xerox PARC and the founders of Xerox PARC, Tesla, where I was head of Agile at Tesla for Elon Musk, and then had visits to SpaceX during that time too. There's a lot of cross interaction between Tesla and SpaceX. Toyota, where I trained the next CEO of Toyota, Daisuke Toyota. I was the certified Scrum trainer for Daisuke. MIT and MIT Sloan Business School. Siemens, Pictet Bank, which is the largest privately owned bank in the world, and more than 100 others. So please consider trusting me.
So let's consider trusting the man, okay? Let's consider that, because it definitely has something to bring, and I believe for Place System, this is a must, really a must.
Brands, these companies, these news outlets have decided to trust me. Please consider trusting me. The Agile Business Institute has full-time operations in all the most densely populated time zones, truly covering the world of work. The ultimate goal of the Agile Business Institute is to produce a globally powerful Master of Business Agility degree, a modern MBA. Having guest lectured at MIT Sloan Business School, Harvard Business School, that was Ricardo Meriti, one of the other contributing authors, not me. I haven't yet anyway. University of California at Berkeley, that was me. Carnegie Mellon, Oxford University in England, industrial design and fashion schools globally, such as l'IFM École de Mode, IFM in Paris, Universitat de Barcelona, and Parsons Fashion and Art Design School in New York City, and others. We have observed contemporary business degrees offer courses on business agility, but still also teach outmoded models of dehumanizing and frankly ineffective management, like Sloan silos, where a company is divided by skills groups. And I'll try to address in this book why that's.
Try to find things along Sloan silos, and I couldn't. So I probably need to research more, but nevertheless, that is the thing that is being talked about. Like HR in here, and these in there, and then manufacturing. So it's like this is really a very interesting and different approach. So the matter goes on.
A really poor idea if you're interested in speed, innovation, and employee engagement or employee happiness, or even just money, like just frankly effective business. It must be so tempting to believe that business students can learn a rote set of spreadsheet formulas that arm them to sweep out the old management team and create dramatically superior, sustained shareholder performance. Rote formulas would do nothing to repeatedly create products that improve what is possible with a high morale employee base. It doesn't work. Rote formulas don't create engagement and fit evolving business scenarios. That is as true as an axiom. And yet it's commonly held by business schools that if you study these case studies and derive from them rote patterns of management, you can then go out and rescue any company. And that does not have a track record of success. For a track record of success, we would need an entirely new framework. That's not a rote set of rules, but a self-reinforcing framework that creates a dynamic, an agile business. How to read this book.
I'm going to pause in here because as you see, increase the speed. What's really important is the fact that there is the self-reinforcing learning method in here. It is not by it just because it thinks so, but mostly because it provides results. This is really, really important. So next part is going to talk about mostly how to read this book. I'm going to give you an updated version of, because I did it in not 2 days, but I did it in 5 days with tons of work in there. So that I think that this chapter is really good.
Immersive learning is a superpower we can all access. And one way this is done is in a seminar. In this book, we want to give you a feel for the seminar experience as you go along, gaining a sense of inclusion during our time together. Findings about the physiology and neuroscience of learning suggests that active focus for set blocks of time with breaks between them enhances learning experience. When reading this book, please treat it the same as you would attendance in one of our classes. Get up and get moving, at least every 90 minutes if you can. Take a 15-minute break every 45 minutes to walk, stretch, get a coffee or water, and most importantly, get fresh air. Research by Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and SUNY Upstate Medical University, New York, show that air in a conference room or single room becomes so oxygen poor after just one short meeting that our brain function is impacted more than some drugs, with performance dropping from 44 to 94% when CO2 levels crossed 2,500 parts per million. A Harvard and SUNY study later backed up those findings. I'll try to translate that. Basically, if you're in a conference room for more than 45 minutes and you haven't opened the door, it's even worse if there's more than one person, but an average size conference room. Your judgment and critical thinking capability becomes as impaired as if you've had 2 to 4 beers. No wonder the meeting culture, at least pre-COVID, pre-remote work revolution, made a lot of really unhappy, slow, disengaged businesses. And I'm not saying knock down every wall and go open floor plan only, but at least open the door or keep meetings under 45 minutes. If practical, please attempt to read this book in 2 days. I know that's a stretch. This book, depending on the translation, is about 250 pages. But if you could do it in 2 8-hour chunks, depending on your reading speed, that would match the rhythm we've created in the live courses, the most popular version of the live courses. And that works really well. So if you can, I invite you to try to read the book in 2 days.
Okay, so the pace of reading in 2 days is really, really hard. I've tried it. I would say the first days was possible, but after that, goodness me, this is a lot of content. And chapter 9 that is to do with team programming is really a blast. So just be aware as you when you move into this that you can do it in 3, but if you take some of the notes that I'm going to share or keep sharing, I think you can do it even faster. I believe so. Okay, so let's continue.
Recommended and aggressive goal would be chapter 1 through 10, the first half of the book across a full day. Your target, not counting break time, would be to try to do that in 8 hours. And that depends on your reading speed. And I encourage you to stop and take notes. That's the advantage of a book. Treat this day as an immersive class with 4 to 8 hours dedicated to this first approximately 100 pages. Then perform the brief homework just before going to sleep on night 1 at the end of chapter 10, the first half of the book. The morning on day 2, your brain will have had the opportunity to generate new synapses and synaptic connections with which allow us to develop new patterns of thinking and new habits. This is in fact required to accomplish a change in mindset, should you decide for that to be something you're interested in exploring. The cool thing about the way the brain grows, as far as we think we know, as far as I think I've learned working with some neuroscientists and neuroscience researchers, is you have to choose to think a given way. It is a choice. And then that encourages synapses to fire along those paths of thinking. And the more those synapses fire along any given path, the stronger they become. They grow closer together, they grow connections, and then they grow a sheath, a myelin sheath. And that sheath allows the synapses to use less energy to fire. So of course they fire even more often along those paths and less often along other paths. This is, as far as we know, what makes a habit, a mindset, or a culture. It's this, and you can actually choose it. This book is built to give us some options of how we want to think if you choose to. So again, that's the cool thing. You absolutely, research suggests we have free will. So if you think, I would like to make this habit, and if for this book's case, some Scrum habits, some Agile business habits, doing the homework just before sleeping after reading the first half of the book gives us a very high likelihood of building those synaptic chains to create the models of thinking, the mindset of thinking that's proposed in this book, which I will call an agile mindset. And I really think we got it right. So I'll encourage you to try to open up the possibility in your brain that maybe some new habits are a good idea. Please consider it. The morning on day 2, your brain will have had the opportunity to generate.
I'm going to pause Joe here just to say that effectively that works. And I just want to add a bit more of research on that, on the dopamine and in the overall neurotransmitters biology, so that we can get this right. Okay, I found it very, very interesting. Doing sessions in 2 hours and not more than 2 hours, highly dynamic. So this is definitely something to consider.
Generate new synapses and new synaptic connections, which allow us to develop new patterns of thinking and new habits. This is in fact required to accomplish a change in mindset, should you decide for that to be something you're interested in exploring. Day 2, please read the second half of the book, chapter 11 through 20, concluding with your certification. We are not able to grant a certification from the Scrum Alliance without working directly with you and your group in a specific classroom format, either online or face-to-face. So I can't give you a credential just from the book. However, you will have earned the equivalent knowledge. So if you aren't too concerned about the credential, you will have had the information. And we look forward to certifying you in person, should that be of interest to you, when you come to our seminars armed with your best questions. So really, if you're not yet a certified Scrum Master by any of the certification groups, this book is exactly the information you'd want. Then if you do want certification, certification will allow you to go deep on the topics of interest in that live session with your instructor or instructors, and you'll already have your best questions. So you can engage with the other attendees and with the instructor with your best questions. Now you know all about us and our dreams and the structure of this book. We want to know more about you. 1, what company do you work in, or are you seeking new opportunities? 2, how do you measure your own business success? 3, does your organization measure business success as currency in dollars or another global exchange, Doge, Bitcoin, Euro, Yen, or in impact, the way a nonprofit might? 4, what do you think might be the strongest business value of good Scrum or good business agility in an organization? 5, what is your role in the organization? 6, what 2 or 3 skills or more do you do well professionally at work? It turns out we are all cross-functional, multi-skilled people.
So these 6 questions and the one that is coming up are really important, because what I found is sometimes in the world of business process management, how are you going to measure how the company works? Bottom line, top line. But if then it's internal, if you're an internal function, how do you do that? These guys got it. They found a way to relate CapEx with OpEx that just works. So really, really interesting feature.
But some of us have not yet explained our breadth of skills to most of our colleagues or business partners. So here's a chance. What else do you do well at work? 7, how long have you been using Scrum or Agile business methods? Or are you new to Scrum or Agile business methods? In the course, our live seminars, we discuss this with a group in a particular game. It helps us get to know each other, and a lot of people become friends. Some people start new companies together from taking our class together. In this book, I'll invite you to post any of those answers to any of the authors or any of the members of the Agile Business Institute. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and email, or your preferred method. For example, you can email me, joe@justice.fit. I have a whole bunch of emails, but that one works fine. And it's not tied to any given company or organization. It's just for me. The email for the Agile Business Institute is team@agilebusinessinstitute.org. We also do info@abi-agile.com. That one might be even better. We check both. In a classroom setting, we would ask you to get up and introduce yourself standing. That actually makes a difference psychologically and energetically to 3 or 4 other people across the room. So you actually have to walk and ask them each of these questions in turn, and then sharing your own answers. When you are beginning self-organization of teams, we recommend you do the same. This creates a very different energy, especially when you ask people these questions. Instead of saying your answers first, you've walked across the room, and so you've crossed paths with different people, and you land with a almost random group of 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 people, and then someone gets brave enough to ask these questions from each other. It creates a very open-minded, fairly positive modality. And I do that when I launch teams live in person. So I've written in the book exactly how I do it.
I'm going to share that these days, or there is every time they mark with 3 years of COVID, and people know
much less likely it breaks that posture. And they start to see potentially people they respect that are far down the line that have a lot of experience. And sometimes they notice they never thought this could work, but there's people that have less experience even than them. And it starts to open up the mind. And doing this standing up psychologically and energetically makes the mood less heckling, less dangerous for distraction. And okay. Which in some ways shows an interest as a pledge of sorts to be interested in it earnestly, in Agile methods earnestly, at least for the 2 days of the training. Second, this physical act reduces the likelihood of a student slouching in their seat and acting as a know-it-all and making sniping comments that could slow down or derail the course. That effect is partly due to the straight spine most of us adopt when standing up in a single file line to have our picture taken. Yeah, the other thing is we're going to take the picture when they're standing, so people pose. And that good posture honestly boosts energy. It unlocks, like calorically, I don't mean only metaphysically, like calorically, you start to burn more calories when you lock and space out your spine like that. Also makes it easier to breathe deeply and oxygenate our blood. This effect is partly due to the straight spine most of us adopt when standing up in a single file line to have our picture taken. Through this technique, the slouching posture of a snide commenter is disrupted early in the course. In addition, seeing where we all are in a continuum of learning more experience with Scrum creates a public value for Scrum experience that overrides a frustrated or tired student's possible urge to devalue Scrum publicly.
like these that show that in a way we are all equal. See what I mean? Let me put Joe's quote. Okay. So
here's what I mean.
better. Okay. It's better to see everyone in a line, to see everyone collaborating, and I'm here for this. Of course, people make their own opinions and they change things. It's all fine, it's all fine to do that because that's how things work. So making the line exercise, getting up, saying, hello, I'm here, I'm ready to take this. It's really an important thing. And the energy just flows in a different way.
They might see someone they really respect, maybe, that has a lot of experience with Agile methods or Scrum. And that starts to associate value. I respect this person's business skill, and I respect how they spend their time. They don't spend their time on things that are flippant, useless, or unhelpful. And they've been doing Scrum for 8 years. Okay, maybe there is something to this Scrum stuff. It creates a currency or an implied value, potentially. In any event, after the students have formed a single file line in relative order of Scrum experience, our instructors will ask students to raise their hands if they have less than 1 year of experience with Scrum and reorder the line. We want to actually show that correctness has value, is the point here. Otherwise, people may be sloppy all through the class and might miss some of the learning opportunities.
No, I really love this data. Happiness. Hello, boss.
Hello, how's it going? It's great from Switzerland.
Hello there.
Thank
hello.
you.
Hello,
Thank you for having me invited.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy. I've read this book already like 3 times, but I think it provides a lot of value to do things, to do hard things. What do you do? Why are you interested in this type of stuff?
No, I'm into supply chain solutions out of South America in the framework of the energy transition. So we highly active in Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, Peru, and we scout the scarce material like tantalum, tungsten, the platinum metal group for their catalytic properties in the framework of the hydrogen transition because iridium, rhodium, platinum
Yep.
are the bottleneck if you wanna produce fuel cells. Yeah, and
Indeed,
fuel
indeed.
and fuel cells allow a great circle as well in space. Yeah, because we're going to produce water on the moon in the first step,
Yes.
and then if we can produce water, we separate the water into hydrogen and oxygen.
The oxygen,
Yeah,
exactly. Do that
and we
for
and from
Poland.
hydrogen, yeah, and from hydrogen you can produce energy by putting oxygen and hydrogen again together, and you get a cycle. And fuel cells produce water, and from the water you can drink, you can produce
Of course.
food. Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah.
and every and the point is every technology has a bottleneck, every technology solution approach. And if you want to go for hydrogen, the bottlenecks are the catalytic materials in the fuel cell. Yeah. In this specific case, the best material to build a fuel cell. So if you want to run a fuel cell for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, or 100 years, you need your iridium. You need iridium, and the production capacity of the planet is 10 tons per year. That's not a lot. That's not a lot. And
Yeah.
from 1 gram, from 1 gram iridium, you can produce 2 kilowatts per hour electricity. From 1 gram iridium, 2 kilowatts electricity per hour. That's powerful, yeah.
That
And
is powerful.
I used to live in South America 14 years ago when I was younger. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was in Colombia, I was in Ecuador, I was in Venezuela. And I have a huge fascination for El Dorado and the special. Uh, as a kid, always wanted to be a treasure hunter. Yeah. And now we are
Okay.
producing. I achieved to localize several spots where we can produce iridium, and that's very powerful position. Yeah, because 95% of the iridium is being produced in South Africa in the gold mines. Yeah, and
Okay.
as Europe is changing in the energy transition, especially Germany, Norway, Sweden. They go for hydrogen. Yeah, and they will need huge amount of platinum metals like platinum, iridium, osmium, rhodium, palladium, and we are producing. We're a small company, but we got the spot.
Okay.
And so far, we managed to produce something like 5 kilos every 45 days. Yeah, and that's our strategy. But we are specialized in scouting every kind of resource: graphite, copper, tungsten, tantalum for laptops, for Apple, for Intel. So we are really focused in critical mineral production in the framework of the energy transition. Yeah, and our thing is hydrogen. And I'm a huge I'm a huge space fan, but I need to prove myself worthy to this business because it's the hardest business on the planet.
It is. It is the hardest business on the planet,
It's
and
not. It's
it is.
nothing. It's nothing harder. It's nothing harder than space business, and
There is not. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
it's really challenging. That's why I like your presentation about Scrum development strategies, because in Scrum it's all about utility value. How you are able in a project focus on a steady way on the utility value. Yeah,
Indeed.
because and that's why I like your presentation about Scrum. My cousin is a Scrum developer for the government, in
Okay.
Switzerland. Yeah, and Scrum is highly efficient because you have a lot of intervals where you can adjust. Yeah, and you can check for utility value. Is the way
Okay.
we're going? Is the way we're going the most efficient? Is the outcome we are achieving the most efficient? And I have a strategy. If I go into projects, you have a lot of crazy ideas and possibilities and ways you could go. Yeah, and I like always I love to remember on Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs said,
Okay.
"Don't tell me how much megabyte or how much RAM or how much computing power you got. Go back from the user." And on going back from the user, that's the user experience, and the user experience can be quantified in utility value. How much the user can achieve with this computer or this software. And this is the same. This is
Exactly.
the same approach in Scrum. You wanna provide, if you have $1 million for a project, you want to get out the maximum utility value of your resources you're putting into the project. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'll find, and from my other experience in other fields, I'm finding Joe's work and the Scrum that could probably even goes beyond Scrum, goes a bit one step further. One really interesting approach, one approach that really works when you have the pressure of delivering space results. Space results mean if you have people that invested in the business, it's very hard to get something up there, and it needs to work. So the team structure will dictate the the success of the product that can be seen in the product itself. So I hope you enjoy, because Joe is going to, at least this part of the book, will look more into that. But and later on, I've got some bit of systems engineering to do that I hope you can contribute. So if you are able to put some notes in the Figma board that I just shared, I've opened up a tab for you called Bass. I can call it Robert as well. But if you
Yes,
can
of
put
course
some
you can
comments
call
in
me
there,
Robert
okay, we can.
Gonzalo. I call you Gonzalo. We are
Yes,
friends. No, I have friends. They're leading huge projects, and I started from zero with a very small company. The most important thing I learned, if you talk to investors, they want to hear, they want you to quantify the utility value. What is it worth to them? How much in for me? Yeah. And if you have a huge project, you can you can make every participant of a project accountable. If you ask them to know their own value, what's your value? What's your personal value in this project? And how much utility value for you through your action you are providing? And you can quantify that. And if you manage the project this way, you'll be able to justify to the investors. You argue on the utility value. The
indeed.
utility value is always mathematical, echo mathematical. You can quantify it, yeah. And the
Yeah,
investors,
yeah,
if they see the utility value, if you're able to show an investor the utility value, you got a very high probability that you're going to receive funding, yeah. And
absolutely,
if
absolutely, absolutely.
I had really great experience by navigating through the utility value and try, and it's very really great approach when you're hiring a person, yeah, you're
Yeah,
hiring a
yeah,
coder or a project leader, and you ask him how much dollars you worth a year. What I'm buying, if I'm paying you $100,000 a year, why $100,000? Explain,
yeah,
please
yeah, yeah.
quantify, please quantify to me the utility value because we love your expertise, we love your perspective, but we need you to quantify your utility value. And that, believe me, a lot of people won't be able to tell you why they're earning $100,000 a year
Wow,
because they
wow,
don't know their
wow.
own value. And that's a strategy. If your team
Sure.
every partisan of a team knows their own value in dollars, yeah, exactly per day and per hour, and what's their expertise and what they're selling to the project. In this case, just for an example, $100,000, what they're providing per week, per month. You will achieve your targets way more faster because people do really understand for what purpose they are here.
Yeah,
That's powerful. That's really powerful. And you could connect it with the Scrum, and you always ask your people, please tell me how much you're worth. What's your contribution to the project? Yeah, and please tell me the utility value of your skills. Yeah, you will be really a powerful project lead if you let the people analyze their own value and then apply it to the project. Yeah, and then you got very precise way to achieving your goals. Yeah, and then the investor, if they're asking you, what are you doing? We're going for utility value, and this utility value is given, and utility value, you can sell it. Believe me, Steve Jobs went for utility value on the perspective of the customer.
No, that's a great approach. I want to get us back into that because you'll see a bit of the combination between OPEX and CAPEX, and that goes directly with what you are talking about.
Yeah.
So let's put this on a bit more in a bit more of it.
So early in the class, and it only takes a few extra minutes, maybe 2 extra minutes if we're quick, we actually firmly rank the line by order of experience. So please raise your hand if you have less than 1 year. And sometimes there's one person in the middle of the line with their hand. And maybe we try to get the group to laugh, and I'll say, well, how did you get there? Or I'll read the room to try to see what would be upbuilding. But then we reorganize the room. Full forgiveness, nothing shameful, keep it positive. And then raise your hand if you have more than 1 year of experience, and shuffle again. Maybe someone at the beginning end of the line had a year of experience, then they were in the wrong word. Raise your hand if you have 2 years of experience, move around, and go all the way through, firm, stack, rank the line. Yeah, it takes a small amount of time. It shows correctness matters in this class, or correctness is honored in this class. People start to respond the way they're noticed. So they'll start to respond more correctly, has been my experience doing this. And reorder the line. This repeats by increasing the increment of time and asking attendees to reorder themselves until we all know how long the most experienced person in the room has been attempting effective Scrum. And we all know about the range of experience in the room. This allows the class from this point on to be tailored to beginners, intermediate, or advanced Scrum application to best match who actually showed up in the class this time. I have had classes where it was all people who've been doing Scrum more than 5 years, and some people who've been doing it more than 14 years, deeply experienced people. So I knew I should change the way I teach the class from that point on. And I've had classes where every single person had 0 experience and didn't know what Scrum was. That was super useful for me to recognize right from the onset of the class. I could teach everything in a different way to try to make it better match who I had to work with. So as an instructor, I find huge value in this step. Also, it lets you know if there's a real mix. And then I will ask everyone, please notice we have some people that are brand new and some people that are deeply experienced. Please be patient if a question is asked that's not at your level. So I ask for support right from the beginning. And that does help people become more interested, even when a question doesn't match. And it allows people to create more time, even for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of conversation on a question that's not at their level, because they understand the mix of the room. It lets the instructor learn a lot more. Sometimes a student is far more experienced.
I'll just move both of us so that this runs like for 5 more minutes, and then we'll do a recap. Is that okay?
Do it.
Than some of the instructors, and making this visible early allows the instructors to teach effectively what they do know, while building in time for them to learn as much as they can too. I've had students that were more skillful than me, and so I asked them in front of the room, please update me when you see an opportunity for me to improve an area or learn something better. I'm honored you're here, thank you so much. And if you do learn something from me, I'm grateful, but I'll do my best to teach what I do know. And I'll actually ask them to help me teach the class. I try not to put them on the spot and make them feel uncomfortable, but I will ask them to, at least in their team, because we're about to form teams, teach, and not without letting the people in the room work at it first. The rule I'll propose if we have experienced people at each team is let your group talk it through first, whatever the topic, whatever the challenges they're working on in teamwork. But if they're stuck for more than 60 seconds, rescue them for the experienced people. Don't let your team be frustrated for more than 60 seconds is what I present to them. Self-organization. Here's the team launch. Now we've made visible the range of experience in the room, right? So this is how I actually do team launch. I do that in real companies. And then we do team launch. The first step of it, well, second is self-organization.
We don't know yet the value And the person that is arguing that this has more value has potentially more, I'm going to call it political, uh, political power versus you that have got a bit more of analytical tools. How have you tackled those things in the past? Because that's a power, that's something that happens in the teams, correct? Someone
That's a
says,
hard one. But the point is the utility. If someone tackles you on a political level, um, you try to focus on the utility value
mm,
of its actions, inputs, contributions, and you quantify it in correlation to the to the target to the target you're aiming for, because you want to achieve a solution. Yeah.
yeah,
And if you wanna choose from two solutions the better one, it's really hard to quantify. But if you quantify the utility value, that means how much output is possible through the solution number one and how much output is possible through the solution number two, you can quantify it, and then you can exclude the political opinion, because if you're putting money in a project, you want to achieve the project as fast and as efficient as possible, and the solution you're producing must have the highest utility value, the highest,
okay,
the
okay,
highest.
okay.
So if you are arguing, you can compare the utility value of solution approach number one, political, and you can compare it to the solution approach number two, technical. And the technical with the higher utility value will always win the argument.
Yeah.
Always.
At least it should win the argument, correct? We had cases with some of the launches of the shuttle and some technical decisions where the utility value was higher to stop things, but the managerial approach, I would say, tackled that. So in the systems engineering side, they are called MOEs, measures of effectiveness, and they allow you to look into when you look into the requirements and what things are being done, and like I said, the utility value, trying to understand if we take this decision, the impact is this one. The utility value will be that one. My concern is always with some decision making folks that don't want to use an approach. Like you said, let's go for the utility value. Let's go for that approach, not just invent things.
No, the utility value, I do understand you. The utility value is a very powerful position, because if you're building a spaceship, or you're having a launch, of course it's more complex. But political in this case, I'm assuming, means cost, cost, time saving, and technology partners, because it's big
Yeah,
money.
it means budget. It means budget, essentially, Robert. It means I own more budget than you, and I own a different position at the moment. But that's it. So these two components um, are the ones that do the problem or the solution.
Because a good solution in my perspective is the solution with the highest utility value. So in this case, like hydrogen, you wanna take out the most energy out of the hydrogen. So you need catalytic metals, and the best catalytic metal you can get on the planet is iridium. Has the highest catalytic property. So you get more energy if you're using iridium than using platinum, or using titanium, or using aluminium. Yeah. And iridium doesn't corrode. So it's
Okay,
almost indestructible. So it runs for 50 years. It costs more, yeah, but you don't have to change it. I had once
I got you.
discussion about utility value in space by producing electricity from water. And then the argument was iridium is very scarce and very expensive. And then I asked him, but the utility value is very high because you don't have to change it. It runs almost forever because iridium is very resistant. It doesn't corrode. So And I asked him, what are the costs by changing something in space if it's broken or you need, it's immense. So the utility value by building something that runs for 200 years or 300 years is really high.
Yeah.
So in this discussion, I learned that utility value is always a very, very strong argument, a very strong position, because you can quantify the utility value on a technical level. So it allows you to exclude the political opinion and isolate the discussion on the technical utility value level, because if in this case going to space is always a technical challenge.
Absolutely.
100% technical, or let's say 95% technical, and then costs of course are very important, but you can it's like an equation. Yeah, you're going to exclude the political element, yeah, and you focus on the technical level, and then you argue through the utility value. Yeah, because utility is the most important thing if you go to space.
No, absolutely. It's the fact that things need to work. So that's a very good point. I'll put a couple more minutes of Joe in here, and then we can comment again. That was good. Thank you, Basil.
Yes, go on.
Like all parts of an Agile transformation and an Agile project, and this Scrum Master seminar is conducted using test-driven development. The test is given to all attendees in as clear and brief a way as practical. And the next part of the work begins once the test is observed to have been passed. The test is, all students are sitting down at a new table with their belongings in a group of 4 to 6 people they don't know, with a gender split similar to the gender split of the attending students. And the relative Scrum experience in the room is distributed approximately equally across all teams. In Zoom, we ask that they do the same, but instead of sitting at a table, they've manually themselves chosen a breakout room with these people. So we turn on the setting, attendees can choose their own breakout room. I haven't yet tried this in Remo or Gather, but I think it might be even more powerful. Those are fantastic online tools, the best I can tell. One fast way to accomplish some of this is to have the students, while still standing in order of experience with Scrum from the class photo, count off by the number of class attendees divided by 4, placing them each in a team of 4 people. While this works fine, commanding the students do this early in the class creates a mood where students are simply waiting for direction, which is not the alive and vivacious spirit of fast teams capable and interested in autonomously solving their own problems. So I have had classes where I said, count off by 4, that's your team number, sit down. I did that for time reasons. Maybe we started late. One class had a fire drill. Another class, there was a very good but lengthy introduction by the company sponsor because we didn't have much time. But it does change the mood of the class, and what I want as an instructor is, as early in the class as possible, teams start acting like they're hungry for surprise problems. And with high trust with each other, they're going to, in a positive way, attack a new challenge. Because that's what I see in the fastest companies I've ever had a chance to visit. And they have this very rapid pace of innovation as a result. That can happen at the start of a class sometimes, especially if I don't use command and control language, like saying count off by 4. Sometimes people, you can really see them like come alive. And sometimes it's just one person and they become a little bit ostracized. So I try to help them and amplify them. But sometimes it's the whole class. They light up and they look like some of the fastest companies I've ever been in at the start of the class. And you know that's going to be a good class from that point on when that happens. Some of those classes are are classes where people after the class or even during the class have created startups together, some of which I've invested in. I mean, they just quit their jobs and made new companies on the spot because they said, we've got it. We know what to do now. It's really cool. Okay, back to the book. As an instructor.
But I want to ask you a comment on this. That is, how is it in your work environment? Or if you can comment, but you can talk for myself. This type of work environment where it come alive, where everyone comes alive with just working with the team, and then some of them the problem seems to be the thing that works. I know, how does it work for you? Is it more command and control, or how is it?
Please. That for the team it works and everyone agrees to the strategy. This was your question?
Yeah, exactly. What's the most lively environment that you've been working on? Is it like a command and control environment, or is it something where people just come alive? How is it?
I think when you build, it starts at the point when you're assembling the team. when you start to hire people. And when people know that in the framework of the project, everyone has to argue on the utility value. That's a strategy. If everyone thinks this way, and everyone who has a input or a solution approach has to quantify the utility value in perspective of the project, you have a very powerful solution at the end, because you don't have political
Yeah,
arguments
yeah, yeah.
in the process of the development. So you have only utility value based decisions. So everyone who has an objection or an input has to come up with a higher utility value. So if I come up
Okay,
with a solution and I calculated the utility value, and another guy from the project doesn't agree with my solution, then I will ask him to come up with a higher utility value.
of course.
So please
And also,
quantify. Please, sir, tell me if you have found a better solution. I'm willing to listen to it, and we're going to go for your solution if you can prove that you got a higher utility value. And so you don't go for the political way, because it's not personal, it's
yeah, yeah,
technical.
yeah,
So you always, if someone challenges you, the utility value has to be quantified. And then you
yeah,
talk on a technical level. And if the guy has really a better solution, you have to accept it because it's got a high utility value. It's a cheaper
exactly,
solution.
exactly.
It's the faster way. So you have, especially in big teams, yeah, especially in small teams, if you start at the beginning quantifying every solution, every decision on the utility value, it
Yeah,
goes for your whole company. Every employee, every
mm,
participant, every
interesting.
technology partner has to justify the utility value, and then everybody knows. So yeah, what's the utility value? No, this is
Yeah,
better. We got a higher utility value. It's a
yeah,
better
yeah,
solution. It's not
exactly.
personal. Challenge us. We love if you could find the higher utility value. That's great because it's a better solution. And so you have a
Yeah,
very healthy environment for you projects, even in very stressy or harsh times when
okay,
people have to work more. So because people argue always on the utility value. And you can say no,
yeah,
yes or no, yes or no. And if people have this mindset in the whole company, you will achieve a very, very efficient way
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
realizing your project.
No, that's a great comment, and I believe that we will find more connections with utility value as we move along. Thanks for this. I will continue forward with you as well.
Please.
Structure, we recommend trying to read the room. The goal is to determine if letting the students fumble a bit, but ultimately self-organize into teams, will be seen by students long-term as their own accomplishment or just frustration. By the way, this will also reveal the culture in which the people in the room are used to working. For example, in some seminars, a manager type will simply start pointing at people and telling them which team to go in. And even worse, some attendees will immediately follow these commands without even being surprised. This early reveal of an entrenched command and control culture will let you know your course and how you'll need to adapt it to provide even more hands-on exercise, for example, on the benefits of autonomous teams that make their own decisions. And you'll likely need to use financial success terms to justify team autonomy. Otherwise, a command and control company won't have any interest. Why would they want autonomy? So you'll need to use examples on why and how it makes more money. Luckily, there's a lot of good case studies on that, and I'll be sharing many of those in this book. This is because command and control organizations are often driven by commercial metrics above all else, likely as a result of a leadership culture selected over time from metrics-based MBA programs, which preach Sloan silos or skills-based silos, and treating people as resources to be commanded. Interestingly, those same organizations typically have the lowest process efficiency when faced with quick change, and therefore stand to gain the greatest business advantage relative to where they were if they can foster self-organization and empowered teams in their company. You really are doing the good work here and will help these companies a tremendous amount. Now the test is passed. Everyone is sitting in a group of 4 to 6 people. They are then asked to create a Scrum board or Kanban board, that's just Japanese for sign board, as shown. Here, I'll try to share my screen. Bam. Maybe I should do this the whole time. So here's a graphic, and later versions of the book, I hope to make a new graphic. So you might have a book with an updated graphic. I hope so, but I hope it still fits. And you can see what the version 1 graphic of the book is here.
value, the most logical next step is the step with the highest utility value. It's like lemmings.
Okay. And do you think people do that in a intrinsic way, or what do you think? You think like by definition, it's like someone like a client cancels a contract or something like that. Do the teams self-organize, or how is it in your experience?
Scrum is powerful. Yes, that's true. It is super powerful, but it's Scrum is a form of utility value because you want to navigate to the best solution. Because if you have a project, the value of every member must be to achieve the best possible solution in the framework of the funding. Yeah, you want to have the best solution, of course, because you want to provide good work, you want to provide a good solution. Yeah, and Scrum allows to adjust frequently and to check that you're on the correct path to the best solution. That's the key of Scrum, because you have this interval, yeah, and everybody can check if we're going to the right path, yeah, if we producing the best solution, yeah, and that's why it's possible to organize such
very
big
quickly.
teams.
Very quickly and very fast.
It's agile. It's very powerful, yeah. And if you combine it with utility value, would be a great combination, Scrum and utility value, and then you have great conversations. You can achieve great solutions because you have an agile form of interacting, and you have a very efficient way of evaluating possible ways to build a solution.
Interesting. Thanks for the input.
Now think about it. Yeah, it's great.
No. It goes beyond just the form of organizing in Scrum teams, because you need points of decision. So what do you use as point of decision? So that's a very fair comment. That's a very fair comment.
Yeah, it's powerful, huh?
Yeah, let's keep on.
Fast. It comes from good ground rules, which you're seeing how they're established for the first time here in the team launch section of the book. Meta Scrum. Next, our first scaling pattern, Meta Scrum. It's really sprint planning and product backlog refinement repeated. I may rename this to be group product backlog refinement and group sprint planning, but for now I will use the published Meta Scrum pattern name, which is awesome, but I'm using it very specifically here, so I may rename it. Our first scaling pattern, Meta Scrum. Here we will use the Meta Scrum pattern as written by Jim Coplian et al. With additions by Joe Justice. So with additions part, maybe I should use a different name. It's significantly more focused. In the book, A Scrum Book, Jim Coplian et al. Writes, create a Meta Scrum as a forum where the entire enterprise can align behind the product owners, POs, backlogs at every level of Scrum in the organization. Okay, so that is also what I'm trying to do here. So this does meet the definition. Here's how we will facilitate it, including the addition Joe Justice applies in the field. The instructor will place sticky notes on a wall where everyone can see. In virtual classes, it's on a virtual whiteboard, and I share the screen so everyone can see. A virtual wall works fine for a virtual class. If there are 11 teams in the seminar, there should be 11 or more sticky notes so that each team may select their own sticky note. Each sticky note will have a business goal that is achievable with effective Scrum, written across it in a large font, readable from the back of the room. So these are big Post-it notes, and I'm using a thick chisel tip Sharpie marker. For example, Meta Scrum for commercial firms. Increase return on capital, that could be a goal. How do we as a company increase return on capital? Another goal could be increase compliance, faster development, reduce defects, win more investment, excite customers, win more customers, enter new markets, meet OKRs and key KPIs, key progress indicators. To extract this, whatever the goals of a company are, those get put on Post-it notes and teams pull them. So this is how known goals are distributed across workforce. Now, I do now add a gold card and I write your idea on it. And anyone can pull this. In fact, they can create copies of the gold card. So everyone could create a gold card if they wanted to. And they can pitch back to leadership, if there even is leadership, maybe it's just each other, their idea. And if either the group or leadership, if there is leadership, accept the gold card as more valuable than the proposed initial goals, the gold card replaces the
I have a question for you, Robert. When looking into this overall company goals, increase return on capital, increase compliance, foster development, this is a personal a question more related to, I think, the things that we are doing. What are you more focused right now, and are you using this type of meta scrum to achieve it? Are you using this type of organization for your own business, or what's happening?
For every goal, you have a responsible person.
Okay.
Every person, a company has a responsibility, and if you put your company together, you have the responsible person. And the question is, how you going to argue with this responsible person? How you make these people accountable? How can you assure that you get maximum value? So you argue on the utility value on our position, because every company has a target to accomplish sales
Yeah.
in one way or another. Yeah, you need to,
Yeah,
and and
it's a big catch.
yeah, sales, and you're producing a product or a service, and the product or the service needs to be produced at the highest quality possible, highest quality, at the most efficient price per unit. And
And what,
more efficient you are, you better, more you're going to earn, or better price you can offer. And that's why you should always argue with every instance on the utility value. So you can cut out useless action or useless steps, or where you lose money, and you can increase the steps or the processes that increases the utility, the productivity, the efficiency, because you can quantify productivity, efficiency, time to market, production cost. You can quantify everything with utility value, and then you can very efficient identify processes or steps or positions that are useless or in any possible dimension worthless. Yeah, but sometimes it's not so easy. It's not so easy. So it's like ants. Yeah, ants are highly efficient. Yeah, they just do things that make sense to them. Yeah, collecting food, getting water, reproducing.
producing, keeping things organized, and protecting each other. Yeah, indeed. So,
Like
but
ants.
have
and
you,
and that's why before you start a project, or even if it's a huge project, every participant, every person who works on the project needs to know their own value. It's like if you're going to work for a company like SpaceX, yeah, or Tesla, and you have your first day with your recruiting manager, or you presenting yourself, and you going to the salary discussion, how much you're going to earn. And this, of course, you want to make as much as possible by having as much as possible fun or satisfaction in your job. And then how you argue, if someone asking, it's the same approach. And
yeah,
the
yeah,
person who knows their own value more precisely is able to negotiate a better salary, because you are able to quantify your contribution, your value, your utility value. You can say, I can design 100 units per year. That's something like 80. That's something like 8 units per week. Yeah, and so on.
yeah.
And then that's very important before you start a project. Every person needs to know their own value, so their specialty, the skills, in what they are really good, and for what they're getting hired. And then the person knows, okay, I'm here for writing front applications, or I'm here for writing code for back end solutions. Yeah, this is the amount of work I can provide, and for this amount of work, I getting paid. It starts at the point to let the people in the project know their own value. It's very important. Yeah, your personal value. If you're an engineer,
yeah, yeah.
if you're an engineer, I will ask you, okay, you're an engineer in aeronautics. How many development intervals you're able to perform per week or per month? Yeah, so the people needs to know their own value. It's super important.
Right, right. That's a fair point to connect to the overall objectives. So that's
Lowest value initially proposed goal, or at least the initially proposed goal is put further down to be pulled later after the gold card is finished. So this is how you get bottom-up innovation. And we'll talk about that more later in the book. We'll do that in the product owner course if we take that together. The teams are asked to send the person currently playing the product owner role up to the sticky notes, and the product owners are asked to discuss with each other which one goal they will choose as their team's release goal to be placed on their team's Scrum board. Team members are asked to quietly lobby their product owner for the release goal they are most interested in or most excited about. Anyone, through their product owner, may propose new goals provided they can convince a majority of product owners that their newly proposed goal is even higher business value than the already proposed goals. That's that gold card I talked about. In the event that a team does not reach consensus quickly, the product owner is empowered to ultimately decide the goal for their team. So the product owners go up to pull a card that their teams told them to pull. So the teams say, product owner, pull this one. And the teams are discussing with each other to try to achieve a team consensus. Product owner, okay, this one. And no, okay, sorry, we changed our mind, this one. And the product owner's job is to then be responsive to their team. The product owner is allowed to overrule their team, but only if there's good reason to do so. Otherwise, the team gets motivated by self-selecting. And if it truly isn't much superior for the product owner to overrule, they listen to their team and get that motivation boost in their team. In the event that a team does not reach consensus quickly, the product owner is empowered to ultimately decide the goal for their team. Deciding a release goal for your team is a delicate act, as it can damage a team's belief that they can make their own decisions. Teams that believe they cannot make their own decision are slower, as seen at the beginning of day 2 in chapter 11, Focus. However, a team that does not quickly have a shared goal fails the definition of a complex adaptive system, which will also prevent a team from quickly making decisions inside the team and cause the same slowness. So we don't want to wait until the team starts to act frustrated or energy goes down. If the team's energy is going down or they're getting frustrated, product owners just grab one. Then the team can succeed at this part of the definition of a complex adaptive system, which I'll explain later why statistically that's a really good idea to build into your company. The product owner's role here is to allow the team to discuss as long as it's fruitful, but not allow the team members to get frustrated or lose momentum. That's a common thread through all of Scrum, by the way, not just in Metascrum by the product owner. The release goal is chosen during Metascrum, must be explained to the teams. In our seminar, each release goal is a business goal. Teams are instructed that they will teach others through a poster each team will collaboratively create how to achieve their chosen written business goal by the end of the 2-day seminar. So for example, if a team chooses the goal in Metascrum in the class, enter new markets, they will in the class create a poster on how any company or an example company can more successfully enter new markets by using Scrum. That means they've mastered that concept. So it truly does become backlog for them. And they'll use that poster to teach the other teams in the room. And the other teams in the room will use their posters to teach them. And it reinforces learning. In this way, teams have now learned how to receive new business goals from management, if there is management. Again, if it's a flat company, the majority votes of the developers. And that's also fine. Companies like Valve in Seattle famously say they do this in their online employee handbook. And we see how to coordinate with other teams to get the goals to the teams that are best equipped to solve the problems. As teams are allowed to trade players anytime to best match skill and enthusiasm to the current goal, we now have a self-organizing system that iterates to self-maximize effectiveness of delivery and morale. So if a team gets a goal and they picked it, or maybe the product owner picked it because the team couldn't choose, fine. The teams then have an opportunity to trade players, and they can actually do this anytime, to get the best mix for that team. In minutes, like 3 minutes, you have arguably the optimum team mix for the goals you presented the room. This is so absurdly powerful for business. This is actually open space. What we're doing here is open space, and this goes well above what Scrum is. Scrum is just 3-5-3. It's a management structure. I'm actually teaching a complete Agile business solution here. This isn't just Scrum. This is the best parts of open space management, and I did a lot of this at Tesla, which you can hear about in some of the podcasts I've been recording recently. We really could stop the class right here in the first 60 minutes, because you have the recipe. You have self-organizing teams pulling new goals from open space and self-managing to increase their efficacy. I mean, you've already won. But practicing Scrum for the rest of the class with hands-on examples and justifications will reinforce these points and make it easier to play the game of Scrum forever afterwards. It also will handle edge cases that can and do arise in the real world of work, and the Scrum Masters in the class that take the rest of the class will understand how to handle some not unlikely edge cases. After Metascrum, teams are shown the overall backlog of the course, everything we're going to do together. The Scrum Master of each team follows the instructor in creating a Sprint 1 burn down chart, which is absolutely necessary for creating future customer commitments or working with investors, as seen after lunchtime in Chapter 8, Estimate. Here's the entire course backlog, or it was at the time this book was first written. It's actually significantly different now. And here's the Sprint 1 burn down chart. In this example, we're an hour into a class that started at 10 a.m. and we finished introduction, which was worth 18 points in estimation. Now, we haven't done estimation yet as a class. We'll do that later. It looks like it's going to be after lunch at the current trend. So I asked the attendees to bear with me. Intro is worth 18 points. How and why it gets 18 points we'll do later in the section called estimate. But they see already a trend to what they're likely going to get done by lunchtime, depending on when the class started. Finally, the group Scrum board is drawn for the class, and I usually draw that as the facilitator. If I have an expert Scrum Master or coach in the class, I may ask them to draw it, or sometimes they volunteer. This board is maintained by the instructor, just as it would be maintained by the business owner, ultimately responsible for viability and impact of the business. This is similar to an Obeya room in the Toyota production system, a one-stop view of the best information currently available to make business decisions on the spot. For this practice to be effective, the best information must be present here, and the information must be current. Luckily, now that we have the Scrum framework in place across our teams, Scrum Masters are trained and responsible to provide management metrics that are incredibly brief, simple, and straightforward, making our group Scrum board fit on a standard whiteboard or virtual whiteboard. Because we have Scrum, we have teams with Scrum Masters on them. And because our Scrum Masters now have backlog and are making burn downs, burn down charts, we can so easily have them post updates to the group Scrum board. And there's no additional management overhead needed. It becomes a self-regulating, self-reporting, self-managing system. It's really beautiful. If any of you are software developers and have ever programmed a fractal and you run it and it doesn't crash, and the fractal repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats forever, like the Mandelbrot set, for example, it's a beautiful feeling for most of us. That's what we've just done here by establishing the correct algorithm. By getting the algorithm right, the fractal algorithm right, it scales effortlessly. And there's a lot of methods to handle more than one team at once that don't recurse. And the way to know that mathematically is, do you have the same rules and roles at every level? And none of the systems do currently, except Group Scrum or Group Agile that I'm using in this book. It's the only method where at every level, the roles and rules are identical. And that means it mathematically scales indefinitely. That's the definition of a fractal of any recursive system that doesn't have an end. So it's actually obvious mathematically, but sometimes common knowledge isn't common. The specific column headers will be introduced in the chapters titled Build, Estimate, and finally Focus. And in fact, there's a chapter title I want to add since this book was first written. It's called Help Request. It's the first column. And that's where a colorful post-it is put from any team asking for support from another team. Or if you have a leadership team or leadership teams, you're asking for help from them. Things like, we want to hire someone, or the machine's jammed, or none of us know how to do this particular type of algorithm. Does someone in another team know how? And you get this fast response across teams without waiting for another meeting. All of these are shortcuts to avoid wait states, so we have faster pace of innovation. In the live working environment in real businesses, the group Scrum board columns will be sprint numbers, with each team having their own row and the cells filled in by the teams themselves. So you don't have some master group that populates this. The teams themselves populate it. That lets you know, as someone facilitating agility across the company, which teams are not participating, because you can see their group Scrum board stops being updated. So you know to either coach that team or sell off that team, or if you have to, stop paying that team if it's really, really bad, because you can see who's engaged, who's participating. And at the level of efficiency they're engaged. When I worked in Tesla, we had machine learning measuring the financial efficiency of all teams. So all teams would see how much money was flowing through them and how efficiently that translated into value for the company. So for example, painting, for how much money was spent, how many paint defects were reduced, and by what degree of drasticness, and how much is that worth to the company? And that's all algorithms, machine learning, mostly Keras, TensorFlow, and you'd see it scroll up on your phone and on monitors. Then you could be self-managing because you have real-time efficiency data. So you didn't need like Elon coming down to say, make your team more financially efficient. You could see it yourself. So you create your own backlog. That's what self-managing means. Usually the Scrum Masters of each team fill in most of the cells for their team's row on the group Scrum board or group Agile board, but the team may choose any scribe. The group Scrum board is updated at least once per product release as part of the sprint review and demonstration of sprint team progress. Often they're updated daily or even every 45 minutes if the company's fast. What is actually filled in is that team's sprint goal and a yes, no as to whether the team showed the sprint goal met the definition of done before the set time for sprint review at the end of the sprint. So were paint defects reduced at an efficient use of funds? Yes or no? And the efficient use of funds is a metric. I mean, you can see it red or green, right? So that's not a weird question. It's a clear question. And yes or no, did it happen? That lets anyone judge the business impact, the business effectiveness of these teams. Do they need new goals? Do they need new training? Which teams are rock stars? Should we reward them? That kind of thing. This will be explained with examples in the chapter titled Demo and Retro near the end of our book as a brief and timely example. Sprint goals may be directionally correct improvements of KPI or OKR, or a product release or an agreement signed, or a money transfer completed, or a marketing campaign that's live now, or a customer mission accomplished, or a new customer signed, etc. Many people in classes ask what's an example of a sprint goal. And a lot of it's because they're in a really slow company and they're saying these projects are 3 years or 5 years. What's a sprint goal? Because a sprint's less than a month. So here's what a sprint goal is. I mean, eventually you're going to get really fast. And I'm not kidding. That entire 3 to 5 year project will fit in less than a month. It's magic when it happens. This book is going to show you how, if you haven't learned it already. Maybe you've already taken a class with me and you're just reading this book for review. But here are sprint goals that you can use to get started. You have a KPI or OKR, like defects found in field. A sprint goal could be reduce that. So what's something you can finish in less than a month that will reduce the number of defects found in field? Cool, right? That's a KPI or OKR that's really valuable to the business. Or a product release. We can release this product in less than a month. Okay, that's a good goal. Or an agreement signed, maybe from a regulatory compliance group. Can we get an agreement signed by our UL regulators that they'll accept this faster testing method? Let's try that in less than a month. We'll explain the business case, the validity, why the test tools are accurate. And we can do that in a month. We can try to get the agreement signed. Or a money transfer is completed. We've gotten paid. That means this project is now successful. Or the marketing campaign is now live. I've been in many companies that had marketing sprints and they had campaigns built in less than a month and they were now live. Or a customer mission is accomplished. The customer says, we want to restructure our company for speed using Agile methods. Okay, in less than a month, we will have a restructured organization as evidenced by where teams get their priorities, where teams report their impediments, and what those priorities and impediments are. And it won't be skills-based anymore. It'll be cross-functional project-based, and they'll finish something in less than a month. And we know if that's happened in less than a month, etc. That finishes chapter 1. I hope you're having a good time. Please tweet at me at any time. I'm at Joe Justice, and say, I was listening to your book or watching your recording of the book, and I thought this, and you can see this typo here, and it'd be much more clear if you wrote this a different way. I'll be super honest. I wrote this entire book in one take, and then I hired an awesome editor, but that editor's superpower wasn't splitting up my run-on sentences. They saved me from a lot of other problems. So I have all these run-on sentences, and it's hard to even read my own writing. I'm really excited for version 2 of the book, and that's why I'm recording this version 1, because it teaches me where it's difficult to read. And what I'll ask is for a team of people to please listen to this recording and then edit these chapters to split them into small sentences that are easy to read and fun to read. My goal is a high school student would enjoy reading this book and get the business value. So please tweet at me if you'd like to help edit and improve this book to be what it can be, to move it from this is version 1.19, all the way up to version 2.0, which would be a significant rewriting for smooth and fun reading.
Okay, Robert, what should we change in this chapter of the book from your perspective? Now that we've listened to this, I've got a gift because later on I want to show you the next project that I'm running for the moon. But before that, I would like to get your comments on what things you see that this book could be more precise, what can we edit, what can we add. I've taken comments on the utility value. I think it's really powerful to add in here as a tool. What other things would you say that could be better written or could be improved? What are your suggestions?
He describes always a solution approach with aims to achieve maximum efficiency. I love this metaphor when he used to work at Tesla, and he was talking about the color they were using to paint the cars. And Elon Musk came down to ask if they could improve productivity by using less paints for the cars. That's the same solution approach. Elon Musk did the same. He manages. I think he manages all his departments by being more efficient. Yeah. So this book is brilliant. This book is really brilliant because this guy is bringing it to the point. The only thing he could change that he uses the same purpose, because every single part of that book aims to achieve the highest utility value, to achieve the best outcome of a project, most efficient way. And what he could do, he could give this process always the same name. He, the product, the outcome, being more efficient, being faster, being using your creativity in a more efficient way. But the way he is explaining it, it's brilliant, because the way he's organizing his book, you could manage 250 students, and that's powerful. That's really powerful.
It's very, yeah, it's very
But
powerful.
if he would combine it with my utility-based business navigation approach, it would be even more powerful.
I think that's a great suggestion. If you have any things written on that, please share. I can get them to Joe, or you can get them to Joe, and we have a discussion on that, on how can we improve and add
Because
more content.
I think everything starts with an idea. Everything humans build, do, achieve starts with an idea. And then out of that idea, you create a vision. Yeah, a powerful vision. And if you have something like 250 students, you need to understand your students the vision, the idea in the first step, understanding the idea, then understanding the vision, and then you as a project leader, or you as the guy with the idea, you need your students or your working force to have the same value,
Yeah,
the same expectation. And that's really hard, giving to a big team the same value, the same expectation. And then second, measurement is very important in every project. You want to measure how good or how bad you are. If you're bad, you need to accept it so you can improve, therefore. Yeah. In the first step, you need to accept if something is running wrong or not so efficient or not so good. The first thing you need to do is to accept that's not good or that's not efficient. And therefore, you need measurement that is unified in the whole project. So that's therefore value is very important, and how you measure those values in perspective to the idea and the vision. Yeah. So you get, it's like in the military. Yeah. You have a very unified way of doing things and getting things done. All do the same. All do it the same way. It's always the same process, and it's the most efficient process. And you got the same values and the same expectations. So it's about vision, value, and measurement, in my opinion. And he could, and that's the elements that I'm missing.
okay, that's interesting. We definitely put. I'm gonna put a sticker on mission, value, and
how you
and
measure
utility
those.
value. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's really
Yeah.
important.
I think it's you raise a good point that you that alignment between everyone, that focus on that fierceness of the goal
Because
and going for it. Yeah.
because I had really great experience with utility value in political discussion, because you can break them down to the technical level and measure them, because the utility value you can apply to any department, to any process, to any working force, to any solution approach. You can measure the utility value in perspective of the project and quantify it. And that's really powerful. You can quantify it on a non-political level.
Yep.
A non-political discussion, those are really productive. And you can, and the great thing on utility value is you come up with new constructive solution approaches and ideas that are better.
Yeah, that's a very good comment. Thanks for that. I'm gonna show you something. Okay, that's my since we talked essentially about your EDM hydrogen and oxygen from your side. I'm building, as you, I think you know, but if you don't know, I'm in a team that is building a rover for the moon, and this is the official T-shirt. It's called Extract. Let me show you from this side. Okay, this has got it in here. This is the official launch.
Is this Planetoid Minds?
Yeah, so Planetoid Minds is the company that that I work for and support. And we are.
It's Kevin Dupree.
Yes, it's Kevin. Yes, we are in the.
I have a chat with Kevin Dupree 2 years ago about a blockchain solution for asteroid mining, where you can where you could map the values produced in space, like water and hydrogen. And
we are building. Last year, I had my own team as well. I had my own team last year. We got I got me and the team had one. We were one of the runner-up awards in NASA. And this year with Kevin, we hope to pass along and build. I think you can see extract in here, and this is official. So I hope
I love it.
I hope that you can talk with Kevin and say that you just met Gonzalo, you were in a session, you're gonna address it so that it becomes official, okay? And we are off to go. We have a couple of design reviews and revisiting the extract. Here we go. It's really cool to be fair. Really.
Can I have one?
I'm gonna ask. Yeah, I'm gonna put these out there to see if people wants to have it, because
I want to have one.
Okay, that's a very cool thing. We have in 30 days time we are presenting our report to NASA, to the Great Challenge competition, and hopefully we get along. We definitely have to get along, and then, Robert, we are going to build the rover and make a prototype on Earth, getting it prepared to go for the moon. So that's where we are.
Brilliant.
That's where we are. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
So now you know more than anyone. So I know that you know what we are going to do. You know that the platform is the extract, but we have a hopper in there. So it's a combination between an excavation rover and the transportation rover. We are trying to maximize the energy budget of the rover versus having two different rovers, but we are in discussions to what some of the engineering and technical solutions can be. So, Robert, thanks for coming in. I'll most likely be here next week again, but thank you very much. I'll send you links to the recording of today, and also links to the questions that you might, so that you can comment.
You should build the rover. You should build it based on utility value.
And we are now. Yes. No, you made me think on. We have to make some trade-off analysis. Some trade-offs.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's very exciting. So the U.S. space endeavor is just brutal. It's a thing that only, I would say, if you live in here, you can feel it. When I was living in Europe, we have an idea of what is to do space. In here, you can do space, Robert. It's a real thing. It's a real thing, man. I spend my days talking with entrepreneurs, and we are building ideas and preparing things, and again, going to utility and the process.
I love it.
So thank you very much for being here today. I appreciate your time, I appreciate your patience, and hopefully we can connect after this and come back here next week.
Yeah, so please send me an invitation. I would love to be a part of it. And yeah, great. Greetings to Kevin. Much. Yeah, I don't know if he remembers me, something like 2 years ago. And I'm a huge fan. I'm not from America. I'm from Switzerland, but I'm a huge fan. And we are producing iridium in South America in the jungle. And this iridium is very important for fuel cells and hydrogen production. If you want to separate water into hydrogen and oxygen, you need iridium, and we're producing it. No, but I will be here next week. Yeah, it was
Okay.
great.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Gonzalo,
Learn this was
it was
fantastic.
super, super.
Thank you. Thanks for this. Okay. Speak soon.
Hey, see you next week.
See you next week.